When you think about watering a plant, it seems pretty straightforward, right? Give it some water, it grows. Simple. But what if I told you there's this entire hidden budget behind every single drop of water a crop uses? Today, we are going to go way beyond the watering can and unpack the real science of a plant's water needs. And trust me, it might just change how you look at a field of corn forever. So let me just ask you straight up, how much water do you think a plant really needs? Whatever number you have in your head, the real answer is probably a lot more and way more complicated. We're about to blow up that simple idea that plants just drink water to live. You see, a plant's relationship with water is so much more than just quenching its thirst. It's this incredibly dynamic system with all these inputs and outputs, and a ton of outside factors messing with the equation. Okay, get ready for this, because this is probably the most surprising thing you'll hear today. The amount of water a plant actually uses for its metabolism, for growing bigger, is less than 1%. Yeah, less than 1% of all the water it pulls up. So where in the world is the other 99 plus percent going? Well, that question leads us straight to our big idea, crop water requirement, or CWR. The easiest way to think about it is like a plant's total water budget. It's not just the water it drinks, but the entire amount it needs to survive, grow, and do its thing, including all the water it loses along the way. So let's do it. Let's break down this budget. And just like your own finances, a plant's water budget has some obvious line items, but also a bunch of hidden expenses that are absolutely critical to understanding the whole picture. And that brings us to this formula. Now, I know, it looks a little intimidating with all the letters, but don't worry. We're going to build this thing piece by piece so you can see what each part really means for the plant. First up, we've got WP. Remember that less than 1% number I just hit you with? This is it. This is the tiny sliver of water that literally becomes part of the plant, building cells, fueling growth. It's the most obvious part of the equation, but it's also by far the smallest. Next, and this one is a monster, is T for transpiration. You can basically think of this as the plant sweating. It pulls water up from the roots all the way to the leaves, where it evaporates out of these tiny little pores. Now, this is super important for cooling the plant and moving nutrients, but it accounts for a massive amount of water loss. Then you've got E for evaporation. This is water that doesn't even make it into the plant. It's just lost straight from the wet soil surface into the air, especially on a hot, windy day. In fact, transpiration and evaporation are so connected that scientists often lump them together and just call it evapotranspiration, or ET for short. And finally, you have the real-world costs. WL is for water losses, when you're irrigating. Think leaky pipes or water running off the field. And WSP is for water for special purposes, like prepping the soil before planting. These are kind of like the delivery fees of farming that you have to account for in the total budget. All right, so we've got the formula down, but here's the catch. That budget isn't set in stone. It's constantly changing, and it's all based on 4 key groups of factors. First, there's the crop itself. I mean, it makes sense, right? A big leafy corn plant is going to have different needs than a wheat plant. A tiny little seedling barely sips water compared to a plant that's in its full-blown growth stage. The type of plant, its age, even how close together they're planted, it all changes the math. Second, the soil. Think about it. Sandy soil is like a sieve. Water just runs right through it. But heavy clay soil holds onto water like a sponge. The type of soil, how deep it is, even the slope of the land, all of that determines how much water is actually available for the plant's roots to grab. Third, you've got climate, and this one is a huge driver. A hot, sunny, windy day can crank up that plant's sweat, transpiration, and just skyrocket its water needs. On the flip side, a really humid day can actually slow it all down. And fourth, it's all about how the farm is managed. The choices farmers make are a big deal. Using super efficient drip irrigation instead of just flooding a field makes a massive difference. Things like how you till the soil, getting rid of weeds that are competing for water, or using mulch to stop evaporation, all of those can seriously change a crop's water budget. Okay, so we get the total need now, right? That's the water requirement. But for a farmer, the real bottom line question is, okay, but how much water do I actually need to add? This is where we go from theory to action. So here's the key distinction you have to get. The water requirement, WR, is the total amount the plant needs from all sources, but it's already getting some of that for free from rain or from moisture that's just sitting in the soil. The irrigation requirement, IR, is what's left over. It's the deficit. It's the part the farmer has to physically supply. And you can see how it works right here in the formulas. They're just two sides of the same coin, really, just flipped around. To figure out how much you need to irrigate, you just take that total water requirement and you subtract everything you're already getting from nature. Simple as that. Now for our final piece of the puzzle. And honestly, this might be the most important part of this whole thing. It's not just about how much water you provide. It is all about when you provide it. Because in a crop's life, there are these moments that are truly make or break. There's a line from our source material that just says it perfectly. Moisture stress during the moisture-sensitive period or critical stage will irrevocably reduce the yield. That word irrevocably is key. It means if a plant gets thirsty during one of these key moments, the damage is permanent. You can't fix it later by giving it extra water. The potential for a good harvest is gone, locked in. These moments are called critical stages. They're these very specific, super sensitive times in a plant's life when not having enough water has this huge, outsized negative effect on how much it'll produce in the end. Getting the timing right here is, well, everything. And this isn't just some abstract idea. Look at this. For maize, it's right when the tassels form and when the kernels are filling up. For tomatoes, it's during flowering and when the fruit first starts to set. For rice, it's when the flowering parts begin to develop. Every single crop has its own calendar of vulnerability. And for a farmer, knowing that calendar is the whole ballgame. So the next time you're driving and you see a farm, I hope you see more than just a bunch of green plants. I hope you see this huge, invisible, complex water budget in action. This delicate dance between what the plant sweats, what the sun takes, what the soil holds, all managed down to the day just to meet those critical, unforgiving deadlines.